Yo, 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 what's up? What's up? What's up? Good morning, good evening, good night, good dusk, good dawn. Shout out to my listenership wherever you're listening in from: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google, Stitcher, YouTube. If you're watching in, thanks for giving me a reason to get dressed, making me invest in all these cameras. Could have just been an audio podcast, but you guys keep watching, so we'll keep putting the content out. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are on YouTube. Coming live from my voice to your phone, computer, headphones, TV, car stereo, smartwatch, Bluetooth speaker. You could have been anywhere in the world right now, but you're here. Out of the recent statistic I read was 200,000 podcasts put a weekly episode up. So when I say you could have been anywhere in the world, like, you have access to so much content. So thank you for putting me in your listening schedule. Thank you for coming back week after week. Take a moment to be present and recognize that it is now, right now. Whether your right now is working, running, exercising, cleaning, laying down, flying, driving, be grateful we're alive. Failure can be frightening. However, as Winston Churchill reminds us, success is all about going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. One thing to keep in mind is that success is about the journey, not about the destination. So what that means is if you can really find yourself happy with making your mistakes and knowing that's progressing you, kind of the topic of this episode we're going to talk about is the importance of persevering when you're not number one. And I think especially in a global market now where you're competing with literally anybody with the internet in just about anything you do, social media, all that sort of stuff. It's important now more than ever. As Emily Dickinson said, my biggest fear is to be a big fish in a small pond. It's not just being the best at your city anymore or your region, so it's going to be interesting. Before we get into the episode, I need to make a short disclaimer. My neighbors are bumping music so loud. They have been playing music until 10:30 or 11 last night. They were still playing it when I fell asleep. And then, I have no intentions of waiting till they're done on a Sunday night to record. I wanted to get the weekly episode up. So I apologize for any audio. We're going to try to get it taken care of in editing, so you're probably not even going to hear it. Sorry for mentioning it, but back to the show. You got to persevere, man. You got to just keep going. Not everything's going to be perfect all the time. You can try your best to do it. It's just about improving from here to there. So 200,000 podcasts drop every week. I think podcasting was at a peak in Corona. It's not as heavy as it was then. A lot of the corporations got into the podcast game then too. So, I'm taking a look at it and I'm like, wow, I really need to take the same mentality I had as a wrestler, the same mentality I have when just anything competitive that I do in my life. I used to be very, very competitive, and I thought all it was about was being number one. And that was in a pool of, hundreds of people. And then you see, look at like leaderboards in a game. You have hundreds of thousands of people playing. You're not even top 100. You remember when you went to the arcade and there might have been 50 names and you could put your initials in, AMO, Antonio Miguel Ortiz, and I'd try to get that up to number one, and it was just a local area. Now the arcade games they connect online. So everybody who bought that arcade game, Street Fighter, NFL Blitz, they're playing online, and it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. So a lot of times it comes down to promotion. We'll talk content. We'll stay in the social media lane for a little bit. When you're putting out content and you're comparing the new form of social acceptance, which is how many likes, how many shares, how much engagement something has, it's hard to say your stuff will even be seen. So if you've been seen by 1,000 people and 300 people like it, that's a damn good day. that's great engagement if you've got 30%. Now, I'm not a huge master on social media. I can't tell you exactly that sort of stuff. I'm in a different expertise at digital marketing, but it just goes to show that if you have 10,000 people looking at your stuff and 300 like it, yeah, it's still 300 likes, but that means of the amount of people saw it, your actual conversion rate of people that engaged or saw something. So, um, it's a hard gauge when somebody can do better at promoting content, and then we look at that and say, well, that has more likes, that must be more official. I wish the scale went with the people that put the most work into what they do. And this is not complaining about podcasting. I'm not complaining about art. I'm talking about in just about everything you do, you're going to have you're going to have somebody that's getting promoted more. There may not be an objective, especially with art, you can't say what's objectively good. Well, you can. There are some rules. You can say art is objectively bad, but for the most part, it's somebody's artistic expression. You can't put a quantification on that. You can't quantify what somebody's feeling was when they translated it into that art. So if I go on to, I love on Reddit, you go into art drawing and they just started drawing a week or two ago and they say, I want to document this, and they don't get flamed. It's not like the only stuff that gets promoted is absolute great art. So it's more of a democracy there. When you get into what is objectively the best and you think the level of playing field, so there are, whether it be artists or podcasts, there are artists with studios and artists underneath them, and they can create their vision, or a creative director at an agency that has more manpower to put something out. There's entire newscasters and rooms of editors putting together multiple cameras and great work, and they're posting to YouTube the same access as somebody who has a cell phone and just records themselves, no stabilization, just goes crazy and talks, no microphone. They can update to the same visual medium. So it's not a world to get discouraged. I mean, I can't believe the amount of creation. Even in 2016, I felt Snapchat was very limited. Now you have CapCut and all these things that you can put together reels. And I mean, my son, shout out to Jaden, puts out amazing content that he's just editing on his phone. He showed me CapCut. So the playing field is lower, but there's also such room for creative expression. Now, if I taught my son to absolutely only be the best and delete his posts that don't get tons of likes, I mean, I think he may be, well, I'm not going to speak for him, but I think kids or anyone in general may be discouraged to post their content because they're holding themselves to a standard of having ridiculous engagement and shares. I mean, when you go through and you scroll through TikTok, you're seeing your friends' content and you're seeing stuff with, like, the numbers don't even make sense. I'm like, this has 330,000 likes. Christ, it's insane. So if you just look at your own growth and know that you're not plateauing, know that you have some sorts of goals. I was surprised. I looked at my listenership. I got to know a little bit more about you guys, where you're listening from, who you are, male, female. Super, super important as we craft the show and put something together. But I also know that if you choose to listen to a podcast that's 100 hours worth of multiple people's work on a Sunday night or a Monday when we drop, rather than my podcast, that's fine. That's not going to get me discouraged. It's not going to stop me from putting content out. It's about the journey, not about the destination. I'm just going to keep repeating that throughout this whole thing. There was a story, I'm not going to cite a source, but I don't know where I read it, a story about a developer who had worked on a game They literally were the person creating the game, creating the mechanics. They understood how this game worked on a ridiculous level. They were a play tester of the game for like 18 months. So it was their job, 40, 50 hours a week, to play this game. They decided that they didn't like the corporate development world. They wanted to get into just being a competitive gamer. And why not play the game that you helped create? Within a week, wasn't even top 100, top 1,000. There were people who had just picked up the game in a week. So you're always going to run into somebody better than yourself. I'm not going to shout him. I'm going to shout him out, but I'm not going to say by name. But this was a state champion wrestler, and I'll shout out his school. It was a Northampton guy. And I ran into him, and he was wearing a jacket with his name on it. And I mean, I recognized him regardless, but I just said, yeah, man, you have no idea what that name means. That strikes fear into everybody's heart. That's a great name. You know, you're really good, giving him his props and stuff. And he said, yeah, man, you know, one thing I learned is you're always going to run into somebody better. You go into bigger and bigger tournaments, and it's just about being your best, you know? So little did he know that would stick with me and, you know, help craft my mentality. But it just goes to show, like, if you're discouraged about not being number one, you'll never reach your true potential. You have to look at what you have done. You know, when I got into wrestling in District 11, Pennsylvania, I didn't know how competitive District 11 was. You can Google it. It has been for a long time one of the greatest areas for wrestling. Big shout out to Iowa. And we'll tie this in because I had spoke to a national champion in Army. Shout out to P-Funk. I don't know if he wants me putting his actual name on, but I want him to share some of these stories when I have him on the podcast. But he goes and he tells me when he wrestled nationally, he would be out and they said, you know, you're pretty good. You must be from Iowa or something. He said, no. And then one of the other guys says, yeah, he's from that valley. So nationally, they call it that valley, the Lehigh Valley. They were naming high schools, Easton, Northampton, Nazareth. They knew the names of our high school wrestlers, and just the level of competition on a national level, you know. It's insane. Now, if I would have known when I got into wrestling that it's some of the best districts in the best state in the best country in the world, I would have never. I mean, it's hard enough just to go mano-a-mano with somebody in a singlet in front of all your friends anyway. So I wouldn't have stepped up to that level of competition. Not then what I knew then, maybe with what I know now. But I never looked at it. I just looked at it as it was something new. I was learning. I was improving. I was getting better. It was a great outlet for me. And it was about the journey. I mean, there's tournaments that I didn't place first in, and it's great showing the medals to my son and stuff. He's like, wow, this is awesome and stuff. So, all just the more reason to enjoy your failures, learn from them, know that it's part of it. I mean, I named my first episode, The Goal is to Fail, and still may. But the fact that I could look back 3 months later said, wow, I did that consistently and it's growing. People are sharing it. More people are listening. It's a reason to keep doing it. It's a reason to stay on a consistent schedule. So, what else do we got here in the notes? You know, I'm going to wrap up shortly. The other thing I have in my notes is that even when you hit black belt, there's masters above you. I mean, I was saying in my notes, I'm currently, shout out to Exalt Jiu-Jitsu. I don't have his pen. It's over there on the floor. I'm not going to grab it for the camera, but I've been training over at my buddy Evan Robinson's studio, and he brings in people of all sorts of caliber. It's like, man, these people would wrap me up like a pretzel. but it's great. You know, they're all completely humble, and it's about my journey and what I can learn, and already what it's adding to my life, and sticking with it and kind of growing from there. So I'll probably check back in around 3 months or so. 3 months or so. Let you guys know what's going on there. I do have some announcements. Hang on one second. You know what? We'll keep the announcements short, so I'll just fly off the top with them. But we're going to do some different things for season 2. I'm thinking we're going to go 15 episodes and then drop a season 2. Some of the things I've been keeping, bonus content, episodes that I'm still editing because I want to add more visuals, make it more for the YouTube, and put some more produced stuff. Still want to put everything out on a consistent schedule, but you can look forward to some guests, some multiple camera angles, just shopkeeping stuff. This is a great creative outlet. It's a fun hobby. So thank you for your patience with me as we grow. Thank you for rolling with us as we make the mistakes, you know. Keep us in mind as you're sharing and you're letting people know what you listen to, what goes on. This is I Will Not Lose podcast, stories of success learned from failure. To support the show, visit the website. You can also visit the show there. That's shows.acast.com/I Will Not Lose. Subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Share the episode link. Leave a comment. Your contribution is appreciated. Thank you for listening. And big shout out again to P-Funk. This is the first official I Will Not Lose. We'll call it a little mini sponsorship. But this episode was brought to you by the I Will Not Lose Cup. Thank you for listening.